Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Diamond Rivera of Diamond Rivera Films, and you are tuned in to another episode of Live Discussions with Diamond, Season 3. And tonight we have here, and that I consider salsa royalty, a queen in her own right. Yes, the queen, Miss Anya Katsevman.
Oh, great job.
I said it right, correct?
Yes, that was
Yes.
great. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm so thankful that I'm able to have you here tonight. Because again, like many artists that I have up here and guests, it's really for me, this is a point of celebration and appreciation and recognition of the people that I've seen, especially in our New York dance scene, that really has transcended and trailblazed a newer generation of dancers in the last 10 years, in my opinion. And it's an honor to have you on. And like I told you privately, of having many people just thankful to have a person like you on this platform to share about what you do on and off the stage. So again, I thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I saw when you first started doing this, and I started to manifest mine being on your show right from the beginning. So I'm grateful to be here.
No, absolutely. And then at least before we really get started, how are you doing during these crazy times right now?
Well, New York was scary for a little
Mhm.
bit, but I feel much safer here now. It feels like it's coming back to whatever sense of normal. So I've enjoyed my summer. Of course, it's so hard not to have your normal, but I think it's also, at least for me, has shown me what parts of my normal I'd like to keep and what
Mhm.
parts weren't really serving me. So I'm very grateful for being forced to recognize that I do enjoy certain things that I was taking for granted, and that there are certain things I don't need moving forward. So I'm ready to make those choices for myself and not have to wait for a pandemic to teach me those lessons anymore.
I mean, honestly, that's really informative and really deep, but it's something that a lot of us go through, especially whether we're dancers or not. It's moments like this that are really making us understand what's really important. And especially, like you said, with dancing, this pandemic has hit our scene the hardest as well, because again, we thrive on socialization and connection.
Yeah.
We thrive on socializing with one another and connecting with one another at events. And with this pandemic, it's really put a halt on that. But I know I can see the antiness in many of our dancers that they just want to get back to a social, they just want to dance. And now, honestly, seeing the past videos like from Salsa Mania or Candelas of you and others just dancing, and it kind of brings back those memories. And like you said, taking it for granted because we're so used to going to socials every week, but when that's cut off for a few months, you realize how important it is.
For sure. And that you love it. I found myself going to barbecues and wanting to turn the music on and saying, "Will someone please dance with me?" And I'm
Hmm.
someone that, would typically go to a social and spend my time socializing, but not necessarily dancing. So for me personally, it really showed me how much I enjoy to physically dance, something I always thought was tedious because it's my job and I just did it all day. And now I just want to come here and have a drink and have a chat, right? And now I relish those moments. I can't wait to social dance, to just be able to dance and express myself. But on the flip side of it, I also think that so many people enjoy that aspect that they never really got to explore another one. So I think with dance not being in their lives in the way they're used to, perhaps, or my hope is that a lot of people were discovering other ways of dancing, perhaps taking a little bit more classes than they did before, having access to instructors that was not possible before because now everything's online, and that's wonderful, right? So I think in a lot of ways we're all kind of reevaluating and figuring
Yeah.
it out, and that's very empowering.
Yeah, and again, it's amazing too that even with this pandemic, we can have platforms or even just have a social media that we can still connect with the people that we care about the most. I mean, we are innovative people and humans that just find ways just to kind of reach out to people that we haven't seen in so long, especially when it comes to our dance community.
True.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's really important that people also understand that, it's moments like this that we're kind of now away from the scene, and we kind of can collect our thoughts and realize what's important. And for me, especially now having the chance to have those conversations that, as we say, we have them in the backstages and all the private and personal topics that we really are passionate about in terms of what goes on in this community. I think it's great that we can have this one-on-one time to really discuss that. So, I mean, for me, like I always ask my guests, is really I would love for you to now. We know Anya on the stage, but I would love to get to know Anya off the stage and really bring it back to really the beginning of your dance journey.
Well, my parents immigrated our family to New York in 1993. We immigrated from Ukraine. We were considered Jewish refugees. So the United States had this program where it allowed people who are Jewish and living in oppression to find peace and community here in New York. And we immigrated in 93, and my brother had already started ballroom dancing back in Ukraine, and it was very important to him. And actually, on one of my discussions, he revealed that we moved to New York just so he could dance, because there were very few places where what he was doing was readily available. But when we got here, it wasn't readily available. Ballroom dancing was not meant for young kids in America. It was more a pro-am situation, like in a Fred Astaire or St. Murray, where someone goes, they hire an instructor, and they do it quite socially and for entertainment. It wasn't the competitive aspect that he was seeking. But we knew of a lot of immigrants that were here. So he just tracked people down, got this group of people together, and they would go to these events and beg the people in the competitions to let them compete. And that's how I started dancing. So I started dancing in 1995. I don't know if it's because I wanted to. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if it was to help populate the ballroom community at the time. I don't know if it's because my parents didn't want to babysit me, so they just brought me where my brother.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But long story short, I got to wear pretty costumes, shake
Mm-hmm.
my tail feather, and I was, very vibrant, and I was very good. And so I would win all the competitions. I danced with Val. For those of you that watch Dancing with the Stars, he was my first dance partner. We were
Mm.
awesome, and it was great. And then it wasn't because at some point you grow out of this natural qualities that you have, and you start to develop all the normal insecurities that a teenager has. And
Mm.
I was always in my brother's shadow, and my parents kind of always encouraged him to dance, but I never really got that encouragement or that attention. They had other intentions for me,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very complicated. He was my teacher, and it was very complex. And so I was very good, and then I wasn't for
Yeah.
quite some time. But I did the things, and still had a relatively successful ballroom career. I traveled with Dancing with the Stars. I traveled with Burn the Floor. I did all the things. I eventually made it to be a professional, and
Mm-hmm.
in 2000, but never had luck with partners. So that part was also hard.
Gotcha.
In 2005 or six, I started to work at Dance Sport, and
Mm-hmm.
one of the prerequisites for all the instructors there is they had to learn salsa. And for me, I was a very sheltered ballroom kid with, what salsa? What do you mean people dance for fun? What?
Yeah.
What is that? No, you dance and you train and you compete,
Yep.
and then you make career, like that's all I knew. So for me, it was so amazing to see that dance is part of so many lives, and that it
Mm-hmm.
is readily available and accessible, and that people do it because it brings them joy. And actually, that helped me connect to my joy. And that's when I started to be good at dance again, because
Mm.
I reconnected with this passion that I would just see people walk into the studio one way and leave enlightened and light and happy. And it was wonderful. And so I met Luis Aguilar, my dance partner at the time, and he wanted to learn some paso doble. And I said, okay. And I saw how amazingly talented he is because he would pick up things that took me years to master in a matter of seconds. And I was just like, whoa, who are you? And oh, I'm just a social dancer. I work at the
Yeah.
hospital. I do this for fun. And I said, wait, no, people this talented do not waste talent on fun, because Russian ballroom dancer.
Yeah,
And
we're gonna get into that. I definitely want to ask a question about that for sure.
well, I'm good at rambling, so please interrupt me at any time. But in any case, we had this bet. I started to dance
Mhm.
salsa on a bet. Well, not really a bet, but more like I told him, okay, you're too talented. You teach me this salsa thing, and I'll teach you to be a champion. And that's how we got together, and became two-time world champions.
Wow. And at least I would love to know more information because for me, even with sports, there's always been that notion that the Europeans, the Russians, the Ukrainians, the Croatians, they're very tough. When it comes to sports, it's not about just a fun aspect. It can be seen as a stereotype as the Europeans are just focused on winning. There is really no talk of fun when it comes to
Well,
organized sports in a sense.
I have two perspectives on this.
Hmm.
I think, you have to, in order to understand people, you
Hmm.
kind of have to understand their culture and what is common. Um, for many people in third world countries, or especially ones where there's a lot of communism, for example, you don't really have the freedom and the liberty and the opportunities that we have in America. And I think for us Americans, a lot of us don't understand this aspect, but there, it's very, it's not common that you can grow up dreaming of being anything you want to be. It's not common that you have every door, every opportunity, everything open to you. So for a lot of people, you dive deep into the arts or sports or something that is not standard because that is your way out,
Mm.
and it's competitive because that is your only way out. And it's in that way because there are very seldom opportunities that aren't that, right? Um, there's also a very cultural dynamic that there's talent and natural ability. Those things are all very depends on how you perceive it. So my observation of the Latin American community, for example, no one ever tells you guys that you cannot dance, right? So this notion that salsa is in your blood and
Mhm.
yada yada yada, in
Yeah.
in my perspective, the reality is I believe we are all talented. I believe we are all capable. Yes, we have certain inclinations to excel in some things more than others, and that
Mhm.
is typically based on our interests, right? You will excel at what you're interested in because if you weren't meant to do it, you wouldn't be interested in the first place. So I believe it's really important to pay attention to what gives you joy. But, for you guys, your moms and dads dance around the house. They play music all the time. It's a normal activity. You get up and you move, and no one ever tells you that you can't. In
Mhm.
Europe, for example, where I'm from, it's an art. It's a sophisticated art. It is untouchable. You can't dance unless you train. What do you mean you're just gonna get up and dance? Are you crazy? This is a
Mhm.
sophisticated art form that you need to dedicate your life to. You have to be the most talented, so special. And you know what? Who are you to think that you're that special? You're not that special, so you're not going to make it, so you might as well not try, right? So then you're basically growing up
Mhm.
in Europe under this perspective that everything has to be so worked for and earned so hard, and that there's no way you have a natural ability to do it. There's no way you're going to be good at it. There's just no way. And I think that that really stifles your ability
Yeah.
because whatever natural capacity you have you're no longer expressing it because now you're just battling those, that frame of mind that has been built for you. So I think that's why when it comes to sport and art and all of these things, there's this big cultural difference because, when you don't put that unnecessary thought into your body, into your system, you work with your natural abilities, right? Which
Hmm.
we all have. You don't have to be Latin American to be able to dance. You don't have to be black to be able to jump. You don't, you don't, we all can do it. It's just some of us are encouraged to do it, and some of us are
Yes.
told that it's this, Tchaikovsky, Pushkin,
Yeah.
Shakespeare, right? That like that's, prima ballerinas. They are over there, and you,
Yeah.
little person, you're over here. So that's why it's rigorous like that.
No, and it definitely gives me more clarity and context because I can understand, like you said, coming from people in Europe who come from third world countries, that work ethic is really intensified. It's more instilled at a younger age, and realizing that we have a luxury of dancing a lot of us for fun. We have those that so we have those that can be very just entitled, and when other places don't have those resources, we really understand that we take advantage of a lot of the things that we obtain, and I really appreciate the love and the art form that especially in Europe, the way I just see dancers, how they're groomed, it's really special, and it's really like it's beautiful, and it makes you watch, just as well as kids and dancers from the US, but especially from Europe. I really see how they truly appreciate the art form and take it serious.
Well, there, yes, and again, those good qualities can come from a lot of different observations. But at the end of the day, for me, the word that I use to categorize it is standards. You just have different standards, and because you sacrifice so much for
Mhm.
it, you hold yourself to a different standard. So you're going to cross all the T's and dot all the I's because it's not easy, so you don't take it for granted, and you work your ass off, and you get kind of good at everything. I grew up as a ballroom dancer,
Mhm.
which to me meant I also am a dietitian. I'm also, a personal trainer. I'm also a makeup artist. I'm also a hairdresser. I'm also a fashion designer. I had to do all of those things because I was put in this environment where everyone next to me is perfect, and it's competitive, and this it was just normal. And so that's the other side of what we were just talking about is, when you don't put limitations on yourself, or when you're put in this environment where everyone is having the same standard, you just blend into that. I mean, maybe I am extra talented that I can do
Mhm.
all of those things. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I can tell you that I did. And so did the girl next to me. And so did the girl next to me. And so did the girl next to me.
Yeah. And that's the thing, and it's really special that you said that you were really multi-talented. It wasn't just being the dancing. You knew about fashion, you knew about makeup, you knew about hair. And we realized in the scene that there are times that a lot of the females who are performing do sometimes need help from other women or other people that know these things. And uh, just when you have so many dancers at an event, there are times that someone else is doing someone else's hair, and it can be very chaotic at times. But understanding that you really are complete and are able to hold your own, just not on the stage, but behind the stage and behind the scenes. I mean, it's definitely a testament and really showing how being ultimately prepared for your performances and how you carry yourself can take you a long way. And a question I definitely have is from your ballroom career, and we've talked about this, but I would love for the audience to know is what was that year that you really just salsa kind of changed your life and you kind of really dived more into the learning and teachings of salsa?
I really want to get into that, but something inside of me doesn't want to drop what you just said. So can I talk to that first and then answer your
Absolutely,
question?
absolutely.
because I transitioned from ballroom to salsa, and I came with all of these tools. And
Hmm.
in my experience, and this is why I want to talk about it, in my experience, the tools were not always applauded by other
Hmm.
people, and so just when it comes to being the full package, when it comes to going on stage in a professional way, there was, at least at the time, a lot of, you're overdoing it, you're too much, this is not ballroom, we don't do it like that, things here are more casual, and so on. So I just, before we move on, want to say that I think everyone deserves to put their best foot forward, and the stage is a magical place that is not the same as a social. And there are circumstances there to take into consideration: the lights, how far you are, the dynamics, the ambiance, the setting, and the respect. People pay to watch you, right? So you have to respect that if someone is literally being forced to watch you for whatever time you're up there. So you shouldn't take that lightly. You should
Hmm.
all hold yourselves to that standard, and also do your own research and ask for the help. Don't just do what the girl before you did. Don't do what the famous girl on Instagram did. Do what you like. Do what you think looks good. Do your research so that you can do what you like to your best ability, and ask for help when you need it. Because we also have a lot of trends that take place
Hmm.
that are not necessarily the best serving for the community, right? Just
Yeah,
because, someone pushed it and it worked, and then you just end up thinking, oh, well, it worked for them, so it'll work for me. And so I just encourage everyone to stay true to their own taste and preference, but push themselves to do it to their best ability, because it's important and it's respectful.
absolutely, absolutely.
So I basically really wanted to dance with Luis, and I
Hmm.
really wanted to learn salsa because I just couldn't believe that there's dancing for fun. I didn't know what that was, and it was intriguing for me. But I also found it really challenging because no one really had the quality of instruction that I was accustomed to. And so, as a trained dancer, I thought it was really bizarre that there were things that no one could explain to me, or, often people would tell me that it's wrong, but they wouldn't tell me how to do it right.
Hmm.
And they would use very benign words to explain what right is, right? Words that have no context, like flavor, or,
Mm.
all of these things that,
It's
okay,
vague. It's very
it's
vague.
right. So how, okay, define flavor. How do I get this flavor? What do I do?
Yeah.
So it's like, believe me, I tried sprinkling all kinds of salt on myself. It didn't
Yeah.
work. Uh, so I, for the most part, developed this passion for really learning, and then being able to teach others with the knowledge that I had, that is mechanical, that had context, that you were
Hmm.
able to actually put a sense of logic onto it. I was really excited about taking the opinion out of the education, for it to not just be what someone thinks, but actually have something substantial that a person can feel and do. So I knew I had the training, I knew I had the communication skills. I started teaching at 14. I knew I had the language and the
Hmm.
vocabulary to resonate with people and be able to actually help them identify and define how to have flavor and what that means.
Yeah.
And really, what is the beauty behind salsa dancing? How is it different? How does it relate to the music? And so I did my homework. I went social dancing for, a good 5 6 years every single
Yeah.
day. I studied all the history, I learned all the music, I did everything that I knew I should be doing. It started to develop well in my own dancing, and then I felt like it was time for me to teach others,
Yeah.
and bridge those two kind of worlds, where I can take the skill and know-how that I had as a dancer and teacher, and put it into the salsa community, where I really thought it was missing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think really what I would love to know As a ballroom dancer, I always wanted to know the true opinion about the true differences between the ballroom scene and the salsa scene. Because people can have those conversations, but from you kind of really transitioning from the ballroom scene into the salsa scene, and like you said, it was really the education was lacking for some because we've seen in the salsa scene there are studios everywhere. There are so many people are considered teachers, but it's different when you have a person like yourself that really is classically trained, but also can question those that feel that they have all of the knowledge. And for me, it's did you really notice a really big difference between both scenes?
For sure. And there's good and bad
Yeah.
everywhere. And, the same, it's impossible to categorize ballroom or salsa because
Yes.
there's good and bad people everywhere,
Hmm.
so a lot of the same things exist in both worlds. Ballroom, okay, I started to compete as a salsa dancer because I also
Yeah.
saw it as a place where the results could potentially be more fair. Competition
Mm.
was new, no one really had an agenda, so there was nothing political happening, right?
Gotcha.
Whereas today I start to notice trends, right? There are competitions, and I'm not at all saying that they're political or that anyone has an agenda, but you
Hmm.
could feel trends that a certain
Hmm.
style gets favored, that there's a certain
Yes.
look, or from one year to the next, whoever is succeeding, perhaps in the Congress arena, will then win a competition, right? So
Yeah.
that's starting to bridge. I'm noticing it. I have no problem stating my opinion on it because I see it.
Hmm.
Ballroom is really terrible when it comes to that. Ballroom is very
Mm.
political. Um, there's usually a hierarchy established, and you could be the best dancer, but if you haven't paid your dues, you'll make the final, but you won't win until the
Mm.
champion retires, right? And there's all of this kind of stuff going on, which again, when you're the one judging it, or the one organizing it, you have your own perspective and your own point of view of how, no, it is perfect, it is the way it should be, no, this is what I advocate for. And so it's just tricky. You're dealing with dance and there is no finish line. So these things, I think, will occur. And I think the older something gets, the more of everything it will experience. And salsa's young, so there's a lot of wonderful things it has, literally because of its youth.
Hmm.
But again, the youth should be contributing to a place of evolution, a place
Yes.
of reaching that next step. Ballroom looks the way it looks today because it is competitive, but its roots, especially for Latin dance, are Latin dance. Its
Yeah.
roots are son and all of these more traditional dances. But it changed because people competed, and the more traditional things weren't good enough when someone else came out and did something faster or did something stronger. So
Yes.
the athletic component of it, right, or that standard, the expressive component of it, the artistic component, everything about the art grew because it was competitive, so it grew exponentially, right?
Hmm.
Everything about the athletic body grew. We see that a little bit now because when I started to compete, or when competition became a thing back in 2005 and 6, the dancers didn't look like Karen and Ricardo, right?
Yes. Yes.
but
I.
but now we have a Karen and Ricardo, right? So that's it's evolving in the same kind of way, right? You become more athletic, you become more adapt to the evolution of what a human
Hmm.
body or a human being is capable of, because you want to win. So that's I think normal for any environment. And so for me, I don't always feel that the salsa scene as a whole is prepared for the evolution that it's going to go through. I think
Yeah.
there's a good majority of people that are really for it and that encourage it, especially the ones that have been in it for the longest time. Eddie is one that will always say salsa is a combination of everything, and he'll talk about the roots, but he'll also talk about the influences of the ballroom dances, the jazz dances, the hip hop dances, and
Mhm.
everything else, and encourage it. But there's a lot of people that don't like that, right? There's a lot of people that just want to keep things the way it was
Yeah, the status
when it
quo. They
was
want to. Yeah.
right. And for me, again, I'm all about things growing and evolving, because that's natural and that's going to happen. And everything is meant to be explored, and everything is meant to be shared and collaborated on, because no one's the boss. So I personally don't like to give the authority to anyone, and I don't like when anyone gives the authority to someone, right? There is no boss. There is no, people used to say, oh, this is salsa, this is not salsa, this is salsa, this is not salsa, and I would just sit back and laugh, because the Puerto Ricans were never Latin enough for the Cubans, and the Cubans were never Latin enough for the Puerto Ricans, right? And they would have their own internal battles.
Yeah.
Never mind everyone that is not Hispanic, right? And what that dynamic is like. But there are all these battles, and I would just sit back and think, but okay, well, who died and made you the
Yeah.
boss of salsa? Who are you to say that it looks like this or it doesn't, or it should be like this or it's not? There's a rich history and a rich culture to draw from, right? There's a richness and a component there to share, but it's your interpretation, it's your expression, and it's okay if you like it or don't like
Hmm.
it. That's perfectly fine, but that's very different from saying this is bad, this is wrong,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is
This.
not it.
Yeah.
Just have the balls to say it's not my cup of tea, right? This
Yes.
is not for me, or this is for me and it's wonderful, right? And that's it. And for me, again, I'm a person of I seek quality, and I seek context that I can touch, that isn't opinion based. So there's music, right? The music is what it is, and it's vibrant and it's rich. And if you want to best interpret the music that we dance to, it's probably best to move in this kind of way, because then the activity matches the rhythmical components of the music. For me, it's very basic and simple like that.
Hmm.
But again, it's that exists in the ballroom scene as well. So I
Yeah.
think, I don't know what differences you're referring to specifically, but as someone that's been a professional in both, I can tell you
Hmm.
dance is dance everywhere,
Yeah.
and you encounter the same kind of people everywhere, and racism exists everywhere,
Hmm.
and gender inequality exists everywhere, and people that want to be in power will
Hmm.
always knock down the new generation, because it means they are obsolete. It means that they are no longer important, or they're going to lose the reins to their throne. And that's
Yeah.
normal, and that occurs everywhere. And so, as a professional that happens to mentor a lot of dancers,
Hmm.
I try my best to never tell anyone what to do. I try my best to not make anything about my preference or my taste or my opinion, which I think is why all of my students look so different in their dancing, which I'm very, very proud of. And I ultimately, as a leader in the community, I'm, never going to tell you there is only one way, because that's just simply not true. And when
Hmm.
someone tells you that, they're just not looking out for your best interest. This is dance. We're meant to express ourselves. This is a creative performance art. It's meant to be shared. And every
Hmm.
time you exclude even one person by bringing them down, you're already doing it an injustice. So I can only control myself. So
Yeah.
this is a philosophy that I teach by, that I stand by, that I live by. And the rest does not concern me, because as soon as I
Exactly.
can feel it, I also know to walk away.
Yeah, and then I think I think it's really important, but also very honest of you saying, especially from a person like myself who comes from a salsa dancing background and understanding the perspective of a person coming from the ballroom into the salsa, saying it's really not that much different. It's actually
No.
more of the same, and we go through the same struggles. We go through the same journeys and hurdles, And I think too, what you were saying was really important was the competitions, because I still remember in the like late or mid to late 2000s when ESPN started picking up these world salsa championships and different competitions, and now you started seeing these groups, salsa groups from New York or around the world now coming together. Now the mainstream media was really pushing it, and for me, as people in New York, we think our scene is really big, but it's really small compared to the larger the larger world. But for me, realizing how important I think the competitions were to the growth of dancers, because there was usually a lane of, will I be more of a social dancer? I'll maybe get on the stage a few times, and then there were the dancers that trained vigorously to then um, in the end become part of the competition world. And I think that's really important. And I would love for you to elaborate on some of the students that you really remember that from your teaching times that really, like you said, became their own.
Well, I mean, I think this is one of the greatest reasons why
Hmm.
salsa is so freaking incredible, right? Because as a ballroom dancer, I didn't have the option to dance for pleasure. I didn't have the option to experience a diverse amount of movement. I didn't have the option to social dance. Those just weren't part of it. They're not part of the ballet culture. They're not part of the jazz culture. Maybe there are break circles here and there where hip hoppers can show off in front of one another. But, this is a performance art and it's meant to be shared. And the social dance community is
Hmm.
one of the only communities that allows you to share your craft without having to be a professional. That is incredible for me. That touches me deeply. That has allowed me to meet a lot of wonderful people that I otherwise would not have met. It's incredible. It's
Hmm.
also very, very different from being a professional.
Yes.
And I think that it's important that whoever you are, whatever you choose to do, you just know that difference, right? You know the difference, and you also clearly identify what you're doing here so that you could fulfill it, right? So if you're a student of dance and you want to learn, you find a teacher that will teach you what it is you want to learn, right? And prepare you for what it is you want to experience, or at the very least, they expose you to the fact that there are all of these ways in which you can experience your dancing, which I think is incredible. I also think it's incredible that we have performers of all levels. I think that that's wonderful, which
Hmm.
again is still different from being a professional,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's great that someone can have a 9 to 5 and still dance with passion and still experience all the joy of performing and the nerves and the anxiety and the adrenaline of having
Hmm.
that special day. So I love that we do it all as one, and I love that it's all together. I just think that we as a people have to be careful to really be able to identify what everything is in order to take it for what it is
Yeah.
without creating some of these internal conflicts that I think sometimes we do, right?
Hmm.
So I train a lot of people, and the first thing that I do is I ask them, if you're coming to me for a private lesson, you be prepared to answer, what are your goals? That's the first
Hmm.
thing that I do. And the reason I do it is because, again, I know that we are all different and we're in it for different reasons. And yes, I train champions. Yes, I make champions. Yes, I train teachers to teach. Yes, but if you're coming to me and your goal is to be the best social dancer you can be, I'm not going to push the same pedagogy on you because you didn't ask me
Hmm.
to be
Yeah.
a champion, right?
Yes.
It's different. Then I will entertain you and I will expose you to the material that you need in order to succeed on a social dance floor. And I will teach you partnering and I will teach you dance etiquette, right? Because that's what you're coming to me for. If my student comes to me and says, I want to be a champion, I say, great. here's what it's going to take. Are you ready to do the
Mm-hmm.
work? And then I'll work with you very differently. And so I find that that helps me identify what my role is in my students' lives.
Yeah.
And I think I encourage all of you to be able to identify that for yourselves when you're coming into a lesson, because not every teacher will do that, but it doesn't mean you don't deserve it. So just ask for it yourselves, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I train a lot of people. I don't, I love dropping names. I don't want to drop names because my students' career is about them. It's not about me,
Yeah.
but I'm very privileged and honored. I've trained, many people who have won world championships.
Mm-hmm.
That there have been many years where majority of the world champions held their trophies and took lessons with me that year.
Yeah.
um, a lot of my students went on to do Dancing with the Stars and So You Think You Can Dance and star in Broadway shows, and they're
Mm.
fulfilling their dreams, and it makes me very happy and I love it. I don't know. I don't know how else to answer that
No, I
question.
mean, I think you answered it perfectly, and you just having the satisfaction of knowing that the approach of what you do, because it's really distinctive of when you said, "Am I going to train you to be a social dancer, or am I going to train you to be a champion?" Because those are two different lanes that you're going in. And I think that is a really important topic of understanding. There are people that are just here to learn, to have fun, and they don't want that side. They don't want to go to that side. But there are a lot of other dancers that start off as social dancers, but realizing that, I want to progress, and then realizing a lot of the people's goals are to become champions and world renowned, and for people all over the world to see them and marvel at their talents. But I think it's amazing that you've had the opportunity to create, not only create champions, but create Broadway stars and people who are on mainstream, because you're seeing all of your hard work in fruition. And it's beautiful. I mean, just I definitely know some of the people you've trained, so I definitely know who you're talking about. And it's awesome because the people you've trained and seeing them now teach, I think they are filling the void of education that was lacking at one point. And for me, I definitely agree with you when you talked about the subject of the trends, because I think as well in the competition world, a lot of that came into head because, like you said, you as a judge at one point or in certain events, you see what's coming, you see what's being brought. And for me, my personal opinion, I think an example would be the Colombian dancers for me. And what I mean by that is I slowly started to see in these competitions, I love the Colombian acts, but I started to notice now the addition of the cabaret and a lot of these salsa competitions, and how cabaret became such an eye opening experience of seeing people doing tricks and lifts and tosses. And I then started to notice, from my opinion, from watching, was some teams now trying to replicate that, and but also losing the message of what they were trying to bring across. And from my opinion, I slowly started to see a lot more teams trying to do tricks and flips, and some of them could execute, but then there were also others that really probably couldn't do it as well.
Well, the thing is, again, this is why I always say you need to know what you're looking at. You need to
Mm-hmm.
know the category. You need to understand what's happening, because there's a lot of people that enter competitions and they lose, and then they're
Yeah.
so upset, and then they blame the judges and they don't understand. So it's like, okay, let me explain it to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ask, ask, let me explain it to you. Dancing is about dancing.
Mm-hmm.
Even cabaret is still a dance competition, right? So, yes, it's cabaret, and 50% of it is going to be tricks or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
rules are for that specific event. It's still a dance competition. It's not a gymnastics competition. It's not
Yeah.
an acrobatics competition. It's a dance competition. So, you have to dance. What does it mean to dance? Well, you have to be able to maintain what you're doing to the music that you're doing it to. your body has to first and foremost interpret the music. So it means your body has to move, and it
Yeah.
should move. And I can't tell you how many dancers actually don't move their bodies. And it's beyond me, right?
Hmm.
Because that Latin music has the most rhythm of any other genre out there, which means your body should have the most rhythm of any other genre out there, right? And rhythm doesn't mean you move your arms like this.
Yeah.
So that the fact that dancers don't take more time to learn how to move their bodies and their joints is beyond me. But to each their own. And in a competition, the best person that day wins. So if somebody wins a competition, it doesn't mean that they're an amazing dancer. It just means that they
Hmm.
did better than the guy that came before them. That's all. It's simple. And why did they do better? Well, it depends. It really depends on the presentation aspect in the moment and
Hmm.
how it was compared and contrasted to every other act there. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's a dance competition. So this is why I always say never follow trends. Do not do it. Just because you see someone doing tricks
Yeah.
doesn't mean that's going to work for you. That person won, but it doesn't mean what you saw is the reason they won. So just
Hmm.
because the person who won did a trick doesn't mean they won because of the trick,
Mm. Yeah.
right?
No,
So
yeah.
that's the dangerous part about trends because, you know, at the end of the day, a champion doesn't follow trends. A champion sets a standard and becomes the next trend. So you don't see anyone that's ever won a competition do what someone did the year before. It doesn't work like that. The person that wins a competition is the one that couldn't care less what someone else is doing and just did whatever they wanted. When I train my dancers, if competitors come to me and they say, okay, but what are the judges looking for? And I always say to them, why do you give a shit? Because if you're literally from the moment you're going onto that stage with the mindset of I have to please anyone but myself, you're done. You might as well stay home. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen because you can't please everyone, because you're going to ask Anya and she's going to tell you timing is the most important thing, and then you're going to
Yeah.
ask someone that trained in cabaret their whole life and they're going to
Yeah.
tell you lines are the most important thing,
Hmm.
and then they're going to have a conversation that's going to be super convincing. You know, those conversations in the back of dance sport, they're going
Yeah.
to go and they're going to have one of those conversations and they're going to change their mind. But they change their mind after the lesson that you had with them. And so now you're going there doing what they told you to do, trying to please them, but
Hmm.
they moved on, they evolved. So should you, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's impossible. And at the end of the day, everyone should just train to make their bodies better. Make your
Hmm.
body stronger, make your body faster, make your body more fluid, make your body produce the expression of the music that you want without limitation. That's what training is. That's what technique is. It's mechanics, right? It's
Yeah.
your ability to be mobile so that when you are on that stage, you're not worried that you're going to fall off balance, that you're not
Hmm.
going to make it, that the physical doesn't stand in the way of your expression. That's all. It's quite simple. There are plenty of tools. That's where your energy should be invested. But most people don't want to do that work. So what
Hmm.
they do is they watch, then they deduce, oh, it was this flashy thing and that
Yep.
flashy thing, so let me do the
Yes.
next flashy thing. And again, that suits a lot of people because flashy is easy and that probably is making somebody a lot of money, so they'll make it popular and that's okay, and it works on Instagram and that's okay. And then we have this little loop for as long as it's going to last, and that's okay because
Yeah.
there's still going to be that one person who's so amazing that they take it to the next little loop, and then they'll
Hmm.
take it to the next little loop, and the evolution is going to happen whether you want it or not, right? It's going to
Absolutely.
happen. Doesn't matter who resisted for how long, it's going to happen. So Colombian dancing is going to change.
Yeah, and even Brandon Walker here says, learn to have your body create movement without limitation. And that's really important. What you're saying is because it's important that the people that you train with, that you understand, like yourself, You come not just from being a ballroom teacher and a ballroom dancer and a competitor, but now you're a judge. Now you're a person that is now behind the scenes of it and watching and you're talking to the other judges, and you know what it takes in order for people to become a champion, and people have to understand the honesty in that. And it can be deemed harsh for some, but you have to realize in order to be a champion, you have to really give a lot of yourself and really allow a person like yourself to train and teach you the right way, because again, a lot of people are made for the competition world, and some people can't handle it because it can come with a lot of pressure, self pressure of uh, doing better than what you did before. But I think it's
Well,
really,
it's, I don't think it's harsh,
yeah,
and I don't think that it's pressure. I
yeah,
think, in general, it's really, again, it's about,
hmm,
I think people assume it's those things.
yes,
Also, maybe perhaps they never did it, right?
hmm,
So, for me, I, relish at the idea of having that thing to look forward to, right? I see it like everything's about evolution, and, also our nervous system needs that sense of pressure, right? That next thing that makes it uncomfortable to really tell you where the body stands. Otherwise, you're gonna plateau and it gets very boring. And so for me as a person, I think I'm so grateful that my life when I was growing up did not revolve around prom. This was, I was very young when I came to this conclusion that my competitions gave me something to look forward to on a weekly basis. But look forward to the extent of that big special event, right? Your birthday, your wedding, your prom, that once in a lifetime
yeah,
thing where you have these emotions and this adrenaline. So I got to experience myself under that kind of pressure. And because of that, I became so resilient and I got to know who I am. And, it matured me. It matured me as a human being, as an individual. It made me
yeah,
introspective. It made me grateful. It made me aware. And so I believe in competition because it literally gives you that opportunity. Performing does as well, but competition is like a performance on crack,
hmm,
right? Because of the added sense of pressure.
yeah,
So I think if you understand what you're getting out of it, you don't worry so much about the potential scrutiny that
hmm,
comes with the rejection.
yeah,
So you don't put that pressure on yourself. But again, you don't have to do it in order to be a great dancer. You do, however, have to expose yourself to neurological stress,
hmm,
right? And when I say stress, I don't mean emotional stress. I mean, if you're always practicing, this is one of my tactics, because this is another thing that I just sometimes don't understand, that happens in salsa that actually does not happen in ballroom, is you always practice your routine like this, right? Before a competition, if you're coming into one of my lessons, you best believe that I'm going to have you do it facing this way, facing this way, facing this way, facing that way, right? And so many dancers get disoriented, right? So if you're used to always doing it one way and just shifting your angle, my ex dance partner, would always mess up. If we had a change of direction, if the space wasn't what he expected it to be, to me, that just says your body doesn't know your material, right?
mm,
If your nervous system has an added stimuli and it can't handle the repetition that you gave it, it means it doesn't have it. You don't have
yeah,
it. You don't own it, right?
yes,
And so to become the best at anything, to own anything, you constantly have to expose yourself to a new environment. That's
hmm,
all. So competition expedites that because it gives you that. You don't need it. It doesn't have to be competition, but it
yeah.
works in that way.
Yeah, and I think that's it's really important, and then it definitely kind of helps me now transition into kind of the closing, but now understanding the present life that you're in, and especially now I mean, about maybe 6, 7 months ago, or maybe even 9 months ago, a lot of us, beginning of the year, we were going to these socials and we really loved it, and then everything kind of just went into a halt. But before we get to the question that I have, another question I have is, I have this for a lot of the dancers from either New York or different cities. Can you just give me at least a few of your favorite socials that you love attending?
Um, okay. I love Salsa Mania and all the events that Alex puts on. I love LVG and all of the events that Joel Salsa puts on. I love Jimmy Anton's social. I love Todo Noche. I love Nelson Flores's parties. I kind of I go to all of them. I love
Yeah.
them all because my friends go to all of them. I will, if Huracan is going to any social, I'm there. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. They could go to Connecticut, they could go to Boston, wherever that crew is going, I'm going.
Oh
All
man,
right.
that's
They're
special.
just
Yes. Shouts out to who.com for
they're
sure.
yes, they're my favorite people to hang out with and to dance with. And my attachment is always to my friends and the people that make me feel safe and comfortable and the people that I want to dance with. So, I find that for us in New York, if you're a social dancer, you're going to support all of the socials.
Yeah.
And if you're finding yourself supporting one versus the other because that's where the music you like is, and whatever preferences you may have that are perfectly valid, it's not I don't know, you're not like the New York social dancer,
Yeah.
so I'm one of those people that I'm most pickiest towards who's gonna be there.
Hmm.
And my friends tend to go everywhere, or I've also been invited to perform everywhere, so I've been
Yeah.
to all of them. So I love them all. I hope
Yeah.
they come back soon.
No, absolutely. And now transitioning into understanding the present life, I mean, everything, especially in our dance scene, has kind of come to a halt. Like I say to a lot of my guests, I've noticed that, especially with our dance community, because we thrive on being so close to one another, that this virus definitely affects us a lot. Our events, our schools, our just the overall socialization aspect of it, and realizing, now you have to find new normals or new alternatives to even teaching your classes, and seeing now a lot of teachers have been taking the online alternative into producing, classes virtually for people. I really would love to know now, as a present day dancer, how have you been acclimating to it, and have you kind of really taken on that online approach to marketing?
Well, personally, I struggle with technology. I
Mhm.
have no interest in it. I don't want to touch a computer. I don't want to do the things. It's not my
Yeah.
thing. But I love the virtual thing. I'm sorry, I love it because I'm somebody that I built my career on training others. Artist development is primarily what I do, and that meant that for the most part, I was teaching a lot of private lessons. And teaching private lessons gives me the ability to connect one on one. So I started teaching online a long time ago because most of my students don't live in New York, right? So I train students literally all over the world, and I would log on to my Skype or my FaceTime or my WhatsApp video and teach my students from Canada, from Mexico, from Costa Rica, from Europe, from Japan, right? That was normal for me. So transitioning to COVID actually allowed me the opportunity to do more group classes, which I'm very grateful for. So I actually have two wonderful new sessions coming out that
Hmm.
are starting next week. For those of you that are watching, you can still register in the links in my bios. I'll be breaking down for 2 months all the salsa mechanics and technique, and then I have a special lady styling one. And so that's new for me. I'm
Yeah.
not used to connecting with that many people simultaneously. I
Hmm.
obviously teach group classes and have taught at every congress, every workshop that you can think of, but I was never used to having that on a weekly basis. And so I appreciate the ability to connect, and I appreciate that my classroom has people from all over the world, and that now I'm able to share my knowledge with so many. I also appreciate that, like I said, for me, I realized that our events not being what they are is also forcing, especially the salsa community, to find a way to dance in a way that isn't social. So that means a lot of you that are not used to actually training, now you don't have any way to dance unless you
Yep.
are learning. That,
Yep.
as a dance teacher, that works for me. I'm fine with that,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
And
it's
and I hope, the first group class that I did when Corona hit, I had 50 people in my class.
amazing.
It's amazing.
It really
It's
does show
amazing.
the reach that you have, because it's, I love the honesty of you saying you're not really tech savvy, social media savvy.
I
So,
suck.
and I love it, but at the same time, you're realizing that even with that, you're still able to reach students, and you're still having people wanting to invest in your classes and still train and still have dance be a part of their life. And I think
Yeah.
it's awesome, you know.
And I also think it's awesome that we are all doing the things now, right? Would you have ever started this kind of situation if it wasn't for COVID?
To be honest, I believe I would, but the timing of it was just essential. I didn't start in like March. I started mainly in June. But again, I think really with this podcast, it allowed me to connect with artists like yourself and others that if we didn't have this, you guys would be very busy traveling everywhere. So actually having this time to connect with you all in some way and finding times to do this type of discussion, it did help. So I mean, I think I would have started it, and maybe would have been a different time if it wasn't for now.
I think I think that a lot of us have been sitting on our asses because of
Hmm.
fear,
Yeah.
and watched other people do the things we want to do,
Hmm.
and felt like they're allowed to and we aren't. And I
Yeah.
feel like now that so many abnormal things became normal, it's also allowing a lot of us to do the things we've always wanted to do, but we're too scared. I've always wanted to speak my mind and be open about some of the controversial opinions that I have, or whatever
Hmm.
my opinions are that I've shared only privately and been
Yeah.
afraid to share publicly. And I feel like, well, that's just normal now. So there's nothing holding me back anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm more prepared to do it. Or, I ran my very first online dance competition because I felt my dancers still needed goals, something to look forward to. But I would have never otherwise just streamlined organizing an
Hmm.
event, right? I'm a perfectionist. I would have been too scared of all the ways I wouldn't do a good job, as opposed to
Yeah.
focusing on all the ways it could be great, right? So I think in a lot of ways the technology and the online thing is amazing.
Yeah.
So once we have this transition, I really feel like people are going to pick and choose. Some people can't wait to get back to teaching in person. Some people can't wait to learn in person, and some people are like, "Why? This is comfortable. This is convenient for me."
Yeah. I can learn
So
from like 8 to 10 different teachers in a week, and I don't
yes,
have if I'm not able to see them in person, because most of the times a lot of the artists that are doing this now are overseas. So you're getting to learn from some of the dancers
yes,
you've seen on stage. Now you can, hey, Monday I'm going to take it with Anya. Tuesday I'm going to take it with Alex and Desiree. So it just varies. And I think too, now us being put in the situation of having to adapt, I think like you said, there are going to be the two different crowds of people rushing to get back into the real personal aspect and social aspect, but then also people being like, "Hey, I love this. I love this online option."
yeah. I mean, I love this online option. I wish someone would come to my house and figure out all the technology for me. But I love the online option. I really do. I think eventually when we go back to teaching in person, everyone's going to have a camera set up in their studio and
Yeah.
still stream it online, because it did connect all of us. I love hearing that you know who I am and you think that I've made a positive contribution to our industry. That's not something I ever knew before. I didn't know that there are people all over the world that want to take a class from me.
Yeah.
That encourages me to offer more classes,
Yeah.
and to keep doing my thing. And I just think that there's a lot of good things that came out of it.
No, absolutely. And honestly, I do want to thank you so much, Anya, that we've been able to have this discussion, because like we keep saying throughout the interview, the discussions behind the stage, and these are the moments that, with COVID, and everybody kind of being home, I think it's really important for a platform like mine to speak to people like you that have meant so much to us as dancers in our community, because you've inspired so many from the ones that you've taught, but from the people like myself that see you perform and always wanted to have those talks with you, but we never got the chance because everybody's in their own world and everyone's busy. So I think it's also important that having this discussion be able to be live, but be able to allow people to see it afterwards. It's really the documentation and understanding the artists that a lot of us love, and realizing the human side of them, and realizing that they're people just like us, and that they mean so much to us, not just on the stage, but off the stage. And, now towards the closing of our discussion, which I really loved, I would love for you if you had any kind of last words for myself and the audience.
First, I'd like to thank you for doing this because it's really, I'm. It's nice for me
Hmm.
as a human to know that there are other humans that are interested, that they care, and that that connection is it goes both ways. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to connect with people. I appreciate being able to share myself with them, and I appreciate knowing that they're interested in knowing who I am on and off the stage. That means a lot to me too. So thank you.
Absolutely.
um, I think we're in a world where a lot of our old rules and paradigms are being shifted.
Mm.
And I'm trying my best on a daily basis to take advantage of that as much as possible. So that's what I'm going to say to you and to everybody watching. This is a great time to start being the boss of your own life. This is a
Hmm.
great time to really sit down with yourself, take a notebook and just journal, whose rules are you living by? Why are you doing the things that you do every day? Do they make you happy? Because, as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that we are ever responsible for is making ourselves fulfilled.
Yeah.
And if we're fulfilled and happy, we instantly become kinder and more loving, and start to treat each other better. So I think right now we should all be figuring out what our individual new normal will look like, and do it in a way that suits us and our needs and our desires, not our parents or our teachers or our community leaders. And just really start taking your own power back and
Hmm.
saying, I don't care what's popular. This is what feels good to me. This is what I appreciate. This is what makes me happy. This is what I like. This is how I want to spend my time, and really start connecting deeper and more with the things that truly bring you joy. Because, we do run a lot on how we're conditioned, and then we take it out on each other. And
Hmm.
and I think because so much of what we know has been uprooted, we might as well just take a step back and really just decide, moving forward, are you happy with where you live? Are you happy with what you do? Are you happy with who your friends are? Are you happy? Are you happy? Are you happy? Write all of that out, and decide, what pleases you and what doesn't, and what steps of action you can take
Yeah.
to just fulfilling yourself. That's what I'm busy doing. Every day I ask myself, do I want to live in New York? Do I want to
Mhm.
continue to teach dance? Do I, what's my mission here? What's my purpose? How can I be of most service? What would bring bringing you kindness makes me
Yeah.
happy, you know? So what can I do to add more positivity and joy into the world? So I think that's my going away message for
Yeah.
everybody. And also just know that, I think again, through COVID, we all discovered that we are a community and we do love and support one another. And um, connection is so important for us. So if you've ever been too shy to say hello,
Hmm.
just let that go and say
Yeah.
hi, because the other person is probably just as shy as you and will feel so good that someone did it. But, I know for a fact that so many people are intimidated by me
Uh-huh.
or whatever. It's like, guys, I was born with this face. I work so hard on not having a resting bitch face, but I'm Russian. It's just gonna happen.
Oh my
Come
God.
say hello. I want to connect. I want to know you too. Your story is just as important to me as mine may be to you. So just, let's just be more united than ever, more connected than ever, and let go of all of the things that don't serve us.
Oh man, that was beautiful. I loved it. Just like, straight 100%. Like, I appreciate that because again, a lot of times many people get very intimidated by a lot of the people they love on stage because they feel that their lives sometimes are, or what matters to them is insignificant, maybe to the person they want to talk to. And to be honest, I love the humility aspect of you just saying, hey, if you ever had a question or ever wanted to say anything, I'm open to it. And I think it's awesome because it allows now people to say, when we do come back to this, hey, reach out to me if you have any questions, especially those aspiring dancers that want to become champions in the future. So I think it's really special and important that people know who Anya is. And I definitely think through this discussion, I've got a better understanding and more clarity and context on yourself and from your life, from the past and the present, and looking towards the future. And, I'm thankful that tonight we were able to speak. And at least before we go, I'd love to know if you have any contact information and definitely any info, of course. I know you have some classes coming up on what's happening in the future.
Yes, I could be reached at Anya Katsevman on all the social media platforms. So my Instagram, my Facebook page, they're all Anya Katsevman. My website right now is up at anyakatsevman.com, but I don't think really functions yet. So it's not where it's meant to be. But you can always email me at anyakatsevman@gmail.com. And yes, always reach out, right? Because first of all, when you ask me a question, it forces me to answer it, which is great for me because then I'm thinking and come up with a conclusion, or the service is always going both ways, right? That energy gets exchanged. So never be shy. And at the end of the day, I think communication is so important because this is where you get rid of all the gray area that things are actually people. When you ask someone a question, you give them an opportunity to speak for themselves, and there's less assumption and there's less creation of internal dialogue and stories that are not true.
Mhm.
So yes, always feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. And it's been really an amazing experience kind of going through your journey, your dance journey, and how you've entered into the salsa scene and how you've impacted it in such an amazing way. And it's definitely just seeing the products of just champions and products of just success stories that you've laid in our scene as well noted. And from a person like myself that has seen you for years, I appreciate that because again, it's really, I want people to understand with this platform, celebrating people like yourself is what's needed, because you've worked so hard and sometimes you don't see the success because you just keep working. But having those times to kind of calm down and have someone tell you like, you're doing amazing work. And again, I'm thankful that we could have you on tonight. Like I tell many of my guests, this is our first interview, but hopefully it won't be our last. And hopefully later on this year, we can catch up with you and see what's new with Anya. But, again, I thank you, Anya, for taking the time out, being able to speak to me and the audience and the people tuning in. And again, thank you. I hope you're staying safe out there in New York. And I hope, again, that we can speak again in the future.
Oh, I look forward to it. This was wonderful. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate the opportunity you gave me to be seen and to connect with my fellow dancers and everyone in our scene. So I really appreciate your time and you inviting me. And as soon as you're ready for the next one,
Yeah.
Anya Katsevman at gmail.com. I'm ready.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, and I hope you stay safe and the rest of the audience stays safe. And until we meet again.
Thank you. You too.
All right, everyone, have a good night.